The same man who resurrected President Biden's campaign in 2020 made a crucial cameo in Virginia's governor's race this weekend. In one of the final events before Election Day, Majority Whip James Clyburn stumped for Terry McAuliffe with the explicit goal of boosting black voter turnout. He told Politico he expected McAuliffe to get the lion's share of the African-American vote, but he went on, "My problem is, what will that vote be? Will it be big enough of a vote to be determinative?" Democrats are losing sleep over this question. As the newest polling shows, Republican Glenn Youngkin is leading McAuliffe by 2 points. Earlier, I had a chance to sit down with Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics, to talk about Virginia and other races unfolding tomorrow. Take a listen. So Larry, looking forward to tomorrow, which races or ballot initiatives are you most paying attention to?
Most of them across the United States are not very competitive. I mean, it's pretty easy to predict that Eric Adams is going to be elected mayor of New York. And I think it's still very likely, despite some supposedly closing polls, that Phil Murphy will be reelected in New Jersey. It does seem to come down to Virginia. It's the biggest race that is very close and undecided. And that gubernatorial contest is the one that's important because all the pundits and the media and the handicappers will focus on it and try to project next year, even though you really shouldn't do that.
What do you think that the Virginia race will tell us about national politics and the state of the Democrats holding on to, or ability to hold on to their majorities in the House, or even to hold on to the presidency in 2024?
Well, first I have to note an awful lot can happen in a year. Just to give you one example, when Bush won that very narrow election, it looked as though Democrats had a very good chance to pick up the House and Senate in 2002, a year before that, except 9/11 happened. And then the Republicans held the House and the Senate. So things happen, and that can change the projection. But if you're going to do a straight line projection, the fact that Virginia is even close is not good news for Democrats. President Biden won Virginia by a little over 10 percentage points. And for this to be 50-50, and if the Republican wins in particular, it suggests that Democrats are probably going to lose ground, certainly in the House and maybe in the Senate too.
Why do you think the race in Virginia for the governorship is so close? Is it just about these two particular candidates and their dynamics with the electorate, or is there something more structural happening with the base of both the Democratic and the Republican parties?
The number one reason why this is so close is because traditionally voters refer to the incumbent White House party and say whether they like or dislike what that party is doing. In this case, it's pretty obvious that Democrats are depressed. They're not enthusiastic. They're unhappy with President Biden for a wide range of reasons. And they're particularly unhappy with the Democrats in Congress because they haven't delivered on the promises they made during the 2020 campaign. And we all know the reasons why, but to most voters, they don't sit there analyzing what are the top 3 reasons why the Democrats haven't produced. They just say the Democrats haven't produced, so why should I bother to vote? This has happened, by the way, in Virginia consistently, with one exception, since 1977. That is, the presidential party loses the Virginia governorship. Only one exception in 2013, and it happened to be Terry McAuliffe for his first term. But in every other race, and we have a one-term governorship, so no incumbency advantage. In every single race other than Terry McAuliffe's 2013 race, the presidential party lost the Virginia governorship. Again, it's not necessarily a bad sign for 2022, but it's not the way you'd want to start out.
So Glenn Youngkin, the Republican running for governor of Virginia, is closing out his campaign by basically focusing on parental rights, schooling, fighting against critical race theory, even though it's not taught in Virginia schools. It feels very coded on racial lines. Is that the right reading of how he is closing out his campaign?
It is to me, and it's been obvious for some time to many of us that They're trying to pump up the white vote, to be blunt about it. They're trying to win back some of the white suburban voters, most of them college educated, who defected to the Democrats because they were so turned off to Trump. And they have to get some of them back to win, even though there's a much lower turnout in an off-year race, and they could win maybe by just ginning up Republicans. And that's what they've done. They have ginned up Republicans using issues like, as you said, critical race theory, which I tell people is not critical and it's not a theory, it's race. That's what it is. That's why they're using it. I mean, it's a wonderful little device for them to trigger that racial response in white voters. And I have to say, it's worked so far. We'll find out if it works ultimately on Tuesday. But right now, it's certainly one of the main reasons why Youngkin has tied McAuliffe.
On the other side of the race issue, many of the strategists are worrying, and some, I guess, also complaining that there's not as much black enthusiasm as they would like in the black electorate. And there is some indication that there is also some efforts to manipulate the black vote in the state. What is your sense of how black voters are responding in this race for governor?
We'll have to see what the numbers are in the end, but I think among black voters who actually cast a ballot, McAuliffe will get somewhere around 90%, which is the norm for a Democrat. So black voters will be essential to McAuliffe even coming close, much less if he wins. No Democrat can get elected in this state, and frankly, most southern and border states, unless they have strong black support. You're also correct, though, to suggest that black voter turnout has not exactly been robust from what we've seen in the early vote and in-person vote. And we've had a big vote overall. It's about 1.1 to 1.2 million, just counting early ballots, mail ballots, in-person ballots. But on election day itself, we'll have another, 1.5 million or more. So a larger group will turn up on election day. And that is the key day to see whether black voters will turn up at a margin sufficient to reelect McAuliffe. We don't know. I think there's some genuine exhaustion from all the politics from the last few years. And there's a belief that Democrats haven't produced. Now, again, we can come up with the reasons why, but they haven't passed the big bills. And this has gone on for months and months, and they're arguing it out before the cameras. This really is a textbook case of how not to do something in Congress or at the national level.
Right.
And they've done it.
So Larry, how much is this, particularly the lack of enthusiasm in the black vote, how much is that really about the spending bill, lack of passing a spending bill, and how much of it is about the abandoning or the collapse of the police reform bill, and also this scourge of voter suppression happening across the country, and Democrats not stepping in, including the Biden White House not stepping in a forceful enough way to combat it and to stop it and to pass voting rights protections?
I do think that the lack of police reform is part of it, because that affects all states to one degree or another, and we've certainly had some bad incidents in Virginia. I don't necessarily think the voting rights part of it applies to Virginia, because we've had a Democratic legislature for the past several years after a long period, 20 years of Republican legislatures. And the Democrats have passed the most liberal voting rules we've ever had. I've been here since the 50s. And it is easier to vote than it's ever been in multiple ways. And of course, since Democrats are running the election machinery, nobody is trying to suppress the black vote or other minority votes, I can tell you, because Democrats can't win without them. So I would say yes to police reform, no to voter suppression, because it doesn't apply to Virginia.
So I have about a minute left here. I just want to just get your final thoughts on what would be the psychic impact to Democrats if Youngkin wins, defeats McAuliffe in Virginia, which, as you say, Biden carried by a substantial margin.
Well, politically, it'll be the equivalent of the asteroid hitting, the Gulf of Mexico. You do TV a lot. Every pundit, left, right, and middle, within 24 hours of Youngkin winning, if he does, will declare the Democratic Party dead on arrival for 2022. Now, they may be wrong, because something may happen that will change everything. Or lots of little things will happen that will change it. But you know very well, they got to fill 24 hours of programming daily. And they're not going to hold back. They want clickbait. They want eyeballs on the TV screen. So it is going to be the worst thing that has ever happened to the Democratic Party, of course, until the next worst thing that ever happens to the Democratic Party.
Larry Sabato, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.